Before I read the scripture, just a brief word on the word wise men in the text. The word that's translated wise men in this translation is from the Greek magi, and magi means maybe astrologers. They were kind of court counselors who gave advice to the king to tell him, that this is going on in the heavens, or this is going on. They were wise. They were wise souls who gave good counsel. That was kind of their role. Tradition has them as kings, right? 3 Kings Day. And so we have that layer in there as well. And so they're kind of mysterious figures in the text. So that's just a little background on the wise men. This is Matthew chapter 2, beginning with verse 1. In the time of King Herod, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem asking, "Where is the child who has been born King of the Jews? For we have observed his star at its rising and have come to pay him homage." When King Herod heard this, he was frightened, and all Jerusalem with him. And calling together all the chief priests and scribes of the people, he inquired of them where the Messiah was to be born. They told him, "In Bethlehem of Judea, for so it has been written by the prophet, 'And you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah. For from you shall come a ruler who is to shepherd my people Israel.' Then Herod secretly called for the wise men and learned from them the exact time when the star had appeared. So he sent them to Bethlehem, saying, 'Go and search diligently for the child, and when you have found him, bring word so that I may also go and pay him homage.' When they had heard the king, they set out, and there ahead of them went the star that they had seen at its rising, until it stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw that the star had stopped, they were overwhelmed with joy. On entering the house, they saw the child with Mary his mother, and they knelt down and paid him homage. Then opening their treasure chests, they offered him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And having been warned in a dream not to return to Herod, they left for their own country by another road." The word of the Lord. One of the traditions in Beth's family growing up was Amal and the Night Visitors. Who is familiar with Amal and the Night Visitors? A few of you. I'm going to warn you that there are Amal and the Night Visitors spoilers in this sermon. So stop your ears if you really don't want to hear the Amal and the Night Visitor spoilers. I believe that Amal was performed on this stage, wasn't it? How long ago was that? Anybody? A long time ago. Was anybody in that? Does anybody perform in that who's here? So some of you are here who performed in that. So you engaged that. Maybe it's time to do it again. I don't know. I didn't say that. You didn't hear me say that. It's a big production, right? I'm leaving in May. What do I care? It doesn't fall on me. So because this is such an important part of Beth's family tradition, and we've seen it many times and listened to the recording, it's become also a part of Beth's extended family tradition. And so anytime something pops up that's interesting about Amal, there are these kind of emails and text messages that go out. "Hey, I heard this about Amal," this time of year in particular. And one of Beth's aunts sent an article around to the family about Amal. And so it's got me thinking about Amal, especially as I'm planning a sermon on this text. The story of Amal is a reimagining. Let me back up a little bit. Amal and the Night Visitors is an operetta. So it's all in music. It was written in the 1950s by an Italian composer. And it is a retelling, a reimagining, if you will, an embellishing of the story of the Magi. In this telling, there are three kings from afar in the east, in Persia, and they're traveling, following the star. And on their journey, they need to stop along the way, and they find themselves needing to stop. And so they go to the house of a widow shepherdess, and her only son, who uses a crutch to get around, and they are poor. They are dirt poor. They can't afford anything. And so these kings, in the story, they're called kings, go and they seek shelter. And hospitality is offered to these kings. What hospitality that there is. The hearts are opened and you're welcome here. And at a pivotal moment in the opera, the mother recognizes that there's gold there in these gifts. And she wonders about these gifts. She knows that they're going to go to this Christ child, this child who's to be born, this new ruler. And she sees the gold and she imagines, she thinks, wow, what could I do with that gold for my child? What could I do? What could I do? That's the refrain. What could I do? What could I do with that gold? And in this moment, she steals the gold. She takes it. And the servant of these kings sees this and yells, "Thief, thief, thief!" And the whole scene just, there's this pause, this dramatic pause, right? Thief! And everybody's like, oh boy, busted. What's going to happen now? And so the mother, this poor mother, is subject to the justice, whatever justice the kings have to offer. And in this, one of the high points, one of the kings says, the child we seek doesn't need this gold. On love and love alone, this child will build his kingdom. His power is not going to be built from your toil. The name Amal, by the way, means hard toil. The power of this king is not going to be built on your toil. It's going to be built on love. You can keep the gold. This is a feel-good kind of story, right? This is a Christmas feel-good kind of story where love comes down at Christmas and is triumphant. We don't live in that world, it seems to me. We live in a world built on gold, or in the case of our times, built on the almighty dollar. Money talks, right? Money talks. And look at our politics. Who has the power in our country? It's the people with the money. I mean, you can read the headlines this week, even, and it's pretty obvious. It's all about money. It is self-evident to every single one of us that we need money, we need the dollar to survive. Without dollars, well, we have no living. And it's not at all clear to us that a God of love is of any use to us at all. Money, the dollar, is power. Now, I don't know if any of you have coins in your pocket, but those coins say, "In God we trust." How ironic. It's not God in whom we trust. It's the coin that we trust. It's the coin that we believe in. It's the coin that has the power. It's the coin that enables us to experience pleasure in life, to experience comfort in life, to experience security in life. We trust the almighty dollar. And we do so in such a degree in our society that it's fair to say it is our primary object of worship in this country. It is an idol, a creation of human hands, is it not? It's an invention. The dollar didn't come into existence when the universe came into being. Humans created it. And we worship it as if it is everything to us. It's the emotions that the Christmas star, at hearing this, can engender in us are often guilt, right? We feel guilty because we are complicit. We are complicit in this cult of money, this cult of the dollar. We are complicit in it. We participate in it fully. At Christmas time, the Christ child is monetized to the nth degree. Every single bit of the Christ child is turned into dollars, and every which way can be. We see it everywhere around us, and we participate in it. How can Christmas, how can Christ, how can the baby in the manger be turned into money? We participate in this cult. The cult, the worship at Christmas has gotten turned into the cult of the almighty dollar. Our response, the proper response, I think, and this is hard, this is really hard, is not guilt. When we hear things like this, we know these things are true. I'm not saying anything you don't know, right? We know these things are true. This is not news. We tend to feel guilty. We tend to feel, oh my goodness, I feel so bad. Why can't I do better? What's wrong with me? And we tend to judge. We tend to reach out and judge people who have more wealth, right? And we tend to sort of twist our own lives to make us not seem quite so wealthy or not seem quite so intertwined in this system. But I think the more appropriate response at this season when we see the star is not guilt, but hope. The dollar is a tyrant. The dollar wants to control us and make us think there are no other alternatives. The dollar wants us to think that love, a kingdom built on love, is not an option. There is no option other than the almighty dollar, which controls everything. But this isn't true. It's not true. There is hope. Now, it's hard. It's hard when we are in the midst of this system, when we are bound together with it, to imagine that we might be unchained from the almighty dollar. Yet it is possible. It is possible. One of, I think, a favorite saint of Mennonites is St. Francis. And many, there are many saints who have chosen this path. The path of the child in a mall. At the end of that story, the high point of the story is not the giving of the gold to the poor woman. It's the decision the child makes to throw away his crutch and to choose to journey with the three kings to the Christ child. To throw away the crutch, to throw it away. It's an act of faith, an act of trust, an act of a hope. And this is what he does. And St. Francis, born into a wealthy merchant's family, throws away the crutch. He throws it away. He says, I don't need this. I don't need wealth. I don't want it. And he leaves it. He leaves it behind. He leaves his privilege. He leaves his comfortable home and his nice clothes and his feasting. And he goes and lives as a beggar. And he is filled with unspeakable joy. He's followed the star. He's unburdened himself of his crutch, unburdened himself of his wealth, and followed the star and embraced the Christ child and lived a life with who he called Lady Poverty. Now, the fact is, most of us aren't saints. And that's okay. We tend to expect an awful lot of ourselves, and that breeds guilt. Saints remind us that a life free of the crutch is possible. And that is a sign of a hope. And there are other things we can do to lean into that hope, to walk into that hope. In the last month or so, the Peruvian theologian Gustavo Gutierrez died. And Gutierrez made famous a phrase, God's preferential option for the poor. And the subsequent call for us to choose a preferential option for the poor. Now, what does that mean? There's been a debate about that. And many Christians have come to embrace that phrase, the preferential option for the poor. I was reading in an article about the life of Gustavo Gutierrez and about that phrase. And this writer suggested that deference is the key to the preferential option for the poor. Deferring to poverty, not condescension. We do a lot of condescending to poverty in our society, but deference. What does that look like? What does deference to the poor look like? Well, we defer to money, right? We defer to people who have lots of money. We show them deference because they have power. Built on the dollar. And we defer to them. We honor them. We show them a particular kind of respect. But what does it mean to do that to people who have nothing? To honor them. To respect them. I'm struck in the Amal story that this is done when the three kings don't set up some elaborate tent on their journey, but they seek the hospitality of the poor, not in a condescending kind of way, but with a respect and with a kind of honoring. So there are ways to lean into hope, to lean into a world not built on gold, not built on the almighty dollar, not built on Bitcoin or your stock portfolio or your retirement savings, but a world built on love. We're going to sing this great Bach chorale. For those of you who like Bach chorales, we're doing a Bach chorale this morning. Break forth, O beauteous heavenly light. And the theme in this hymn is familiar, right? Love comes down at Christmas. Comes down to a world of greed and hate. Comes down to a world where we are under the thumb of a tyrant called the almighty dollar. Comes down to bid us love each other, and comes down to set us free.